Hello and welcome to the SuperShow podcast. This week I am your host, Alex Jones, and I'm with a man who's very excited at the moment. His name is Jamie, but he is a Skate fan and has been since as long as I've known him. And we're going to hop right into the first news story of today, which is that Skate 4 pre-alpha footage has been leaked online. And so I can only imagine that Jamie's little grin was the width of a deck, as the cool kids call them.
Oh, I'm glad you said deck there. I thought I was going somewhere completely different. Okay.
Yeah, no. Like a big, like Joker-esque smile with the little turned up sides.
Big time, yes.
Because Jamie's, it leaked. Skate 4 is apparently getting playtested currently as we speak right now in the world somewhere.
That would appear to be the case. It kind of came out of nowhere because I was in the camp of people that thought when they first announced Skate 4 or whatever it's actually going to be called, that was the thing. They didn't even give it a name. I don't know if you remember, it was just two blokes sitting on a live stream, not kind of talking around the fact that they were going to make a new Skate. It sounded more like a pitch for a video game than an actual video game. But now, thanks to this pre-alpha footage, it looks real. It's also, I will just jump in and say, interesting to see what real pre-alpha video game footage looks like, because I think we've spoken so much in the last couple of years about the bastardization of terms like alpha and beta, and people thinking they're seeing them when they're actually just playing glorified demos. This is what a textureless video game looks like, I guess. Kind of interesting.
It is. You're absolutely right. It is funny because, games companies these days try and use it as a get out of jail free, where they go, it's alpha, and you're like, no, it isn't. It's basically completely made, and you're just saying that so that you don't scare away your audience from pre-buying if it goes bad.
The only thing you're trying to find at the moment is the right price to set things in the shop that sells the microtransactions, because you don't want to piss people off, but you want to make as much money as you possibly can.
Exactly, yeah. I actually saw a headline which I thought was quite a good way to put it, because of the way people have been confused by alpha footage in the last few years, is basically saying don't watch the Skate 4 leaked footage if you're going to be worried about the game at all. Because because apparently, like, what they're doing is they're playtesting the game currently with the feel and trying to get the controls right, and they're trying to make the game control and feel good before they obviously get onto like putting textures and putting the proper graphics and things in, which is a really good thing to hear. It means they're trying to make the game feel damn good, and they'll worry about the prettiness later on, because that's one thing we know these days you can kind of nail, right, is how games look, but the feel is something that can fall down. So they're currently playtests going on, and people are playing in a map called Fun City, apparently. And Jeff Grubb, who we quote often on this channel, he's one of the people that sort of said that at the moment they're trying to get the feel right, and they're trying to make sure the game lives up to the expectations of the skate community before, obviously, they go and actually make the game look incredible and look amazing. He has also said that there's going to be some pretty cool modern stuff in there, something that you might see in, say, Forza, into a Forza game or like a modern online game, where you're going to have a lot of customization options for your character, lots of skins for your board, which all sounds like par for the course, to be fair. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be surprised at any of that. One thing that I think sounds wicked that Jeff Grubb has said, but I have no sort of connection to, is the customization. Is like UGC stuff. Because as a user, I'm not going to generate any content for this. I'm not a skateboarder. I've been on a skateboard once, Jamie, and I nearly killed myself because I stood on it, I pushed forward, I leant back, and it shot out from underneath me. I don't know how you would even customize stuff for a game like this, but that sounds wicked. I'm sure people will like the fact that they can.
That's how user generated content works in an online capacity. Is you just kind of wait around for a few days until people smarter and more talented and more creative than you make the kind of shit that you were imagining yourself, and then you can just download it. That's what I do. You mentioned Forza, like Forza liveries. That's just a waiting game of waiting until someone more talented than you makes something awesome and you download it. I've been doing it all of this week in WWE 2K22. Just wait until someone makes like a really good version of Comrade Stalin, and I'll download him, put him in the Rumble.
No, yeah, that is the good side of it, is there are people out there who are so dedicated to making cool shit that they spend their time and effort doing it, and then they make it available. So one thing that has been sort of speculated on about Skate 4 is that there's going to be like a free skate mode, so that you can have people upload their own content, and you can sort of do. I guess the way that would work would be challenges, tricks and stuff, and in like an open world where you can
Yeah.
challenge other people to, you know, score points or do certain moves and things.
Yeah.
Which does sound cool, because I liked that in Riders Republic. I liked the fact that you could set your own like challenges and tracks and things, and you could upload them, and then people could partake. That was pretty wicked.
And it sounds as though they're also experimenting with the idea of kind of combining the free skate kind of online session style of gameplay with some of the more user-generated content-y elements. And this idea, I don't know if I'm being too literal as interpreting it as like people almost building courses or building sort of little areas to do tricks in together, but it sounded like there was a bit of that, like collaboration on the creation side of things. And then like maybe someone would put a ramp down here and someone else would put a rail there, and you'd all create a spot and then you'd all take runs at it. And you know, that kind of nailing a spot, that was an actual feature, you know, of previous skate games, albeit often in an offline capacity as much as an online one. So seeing that sort of fleshed out and made... it was always somewhat multiplayer, but more multiplayer than it perhaps was in the past, and more accessible than it was in the past, feels like a logical extension of what they were experimenting with in the past, which is what you want from what is ultimately, whether they package it and brand it as a sequel or a reboot, you still want more of that same skate flavour.
Yes, and you've got to, I suppose, in the days of like meta and getting more the lines between reality and gaming things sort of disintegrating a little bit. In my mind, all I think they want to aim and get toward is the idea of, you know, like standing in a skate park. Because what do you always see? There's 4 or 5 people standing around, all holding their decks, while someone else like goes and does some tricks and skates around a bit, and then comes back, and then someone else goes off and does that. And I guess that's they want to get a seamless feel like that. They want people to be able to stand around in the game, watch other people do tricks, think, hey, that's wicked, and then have a go at it themselves. And like, yeah, which that sounds really cool. Like, it sounds like what they should be aiming for.
And the reason it always made sense for Skate was because it's kind of like what you were saying about earlier about how this at the moment is prototyping to nail game feel. Skate for me was always about feel in such a way where, like, Tony Hawk's always felt fun to play in a very arcadey sense, and most people would pick up a controller and, you know, after a couple of minutes of playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, they were doing a 540 Japan Air or whatever it was, like off a half pipe, and they kind of figured it out. And from then on, it was about reverts and manuals and grinds and chaining everything together in a way that was ludicrous, but that was the fun of the game. Skate was always that game for me of, like, you go back to Skate 1 and just the idea of, like, perfectly flicking the right analog stick and getting, like, just nailing your first kick flip or heel flip in a skate game and landing it. They nailed the feel of, you know, hey, this is shit that's really hard to do. This is shit that when you look at skateboarding in slow motion, it looks like physics-defying nonsense. It looks like black magic. And we're kind of capturing some of that feel, some of that essence in our gameplay, in our mechanics. And I thought the right analog stick setup was perfect for that. If they have even like like half of the magic that I felt like playing the original Skate trilogy present in this, then I think they're onto something potentially very cool. Yeah,
it is funny because I am the opposite of a Skate player. Like I played Airblade. Like, I thought that was cool. And
I don't even know what Airblade is. Is that like a Tony Hawk's clone?
No, I think it was even more arcadey than that. It was like a hoverboard, futuristic hoverboard kind of Tony Hawk rip-off thing, but it didn't even go down to that degree of sophistication. It was very it was like very arcadey and very easy, and it was, yeah. But that was my level of sort of how the closest I ever got to playing like a skateboarding game. So the idea of playing something like Skate, which is hard, and you have to like practice and you have to get good at it to do sort of tricks, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to get there. But I can appreciate it for the people that appreciate it, like you, Jamie. So I'm glad of that.
I've come here today, Jonesy. My hair is admittedly too long. I'm drinking a Monster Energy. If I wasn't excited for a Skate game, then I'd be doing something horribly wrong, and I'd made some poor life choices. I mean, I have made poor life choices, but not when it comes to my love of Skate.
Do you know what? I've always wanted to be able to ride a skateboard, and like I said, I've tried it once and it was rubbish, so I'm probably never going to do it again. Snowboarding is the closest I'm ever going to get, but
see,
you know,
I respect that because I remember going on snow, let's say, for the first time, and I was given a choice of skiing or snowboarding, and I always thought that snowboarding would be easier, and they were like, if you've never been like down a snowy hill before, I don't know the lingo, so that's what I'm going to say, then maybe start with skiing. Like, snowboarding is deceptively hard, and then skiing was a fucking joke anyway. I couldn't do it. I kept falling over. So I think you could probably transition easier from snowboarding to skateboarding than I could just get into skateboarding from nil, because it's all physics defying, like I said.
It is. It's not. It's snowboarding is harder to pick up but easier to get good at, apparently. Whereas skiing is easier to pick up but harder to get good at.
Well, I couldn't even pick it up, so maybe I'm just I wasn't born for life on either wheels or blades. That's what I've determined after my 29 years on this planet.
Right. Well, just to open in the Skate4 story, I'll just say that EA CEO Andrew Wilson has previously said that he believes that the company can grow the appeal of Skate by focusing on industry trends around user-generated content, open worlds, and community, which is obviously all the things that we have been talking about. And it's kind of weird because in some sense I'm like, is there any other direction they possibly could have gone with this sort of game? Like, it's predetermined, right? But at least they know where their audience wants it to go and the direction the game should be going in. And it sounds good, man. It sounds,
I don't think necessarily his statement was disingenuous, but like, obviously there are unwritten rules of like making a game, especially an EA game in this day and age. And of course, he talks about user-generated content. There'll be just as much, studio-generated content that I'm sure will be paid for, and and so on and so forth. Not to get too caught up on the potential negatives of a development of a game like this and where EA are at as a publisher at this day and age, but yeah, I kind of think, like you hinted at, it was a bit of a non-statement, because user-generated content, open worlds, and community, in some small ways, all define the previous Skate games too. So it's like, when you say growing the appeal of the Skate series, like, I feel like you've said a lot without really saying anything. Maybe
what he actually meant was they're going to Fallout 76 it, and it's basically a giant open world. There's nothing to do. There's just some weird NPCs who don't talk. And you just create your own fun by just going around and, skating and do whatever. Because
then what you could do 6 months down the line, when you've like completely fucked it up, you get a really over-exuberant American guy on stage at E3 or EA Play, I guess in this case, to say, hey, NPCs are back. And also, we've got the Skate Battle Royale you've all been asking for. That's right. 150 skateboarders jump out of a plane and parachute into Fun City. And whoever the last person to do a kickflip is... In fact, no, even better. Do you remember that Tony Hawk's thing where you do a kickflip and a fireball comes out the front of your skateboard?
No.
Well, yeah. It's
sounds epic,
though. Yeah, that's my
now
pitch.
It sounds like Fortnite. It sounds like something Fortnite would do. Skateboarding mode.
There's absolutely going to be like... I don't know. I reckon Fortnite exists in the brain of every single high-level executive on the board of EA, or even just a senior member of staff at EA. Like, they're all looking at the latest collaboration, just being like, oh my god, why don't we have something like that? They managed to get Wu-Tang in Fortnite. Where's our Wu-Tang, fucking collaboration?
Keep your eyes open for Wu-Tang coming to Skate.
See, the fucked up thing is that would be so much better than Fortnite. Having the Wu-Tang Clan collaborate, be in a Skate game rather than Fortnite would be infinitely better. And I'm not even trying to shit on Fortnite.
It would be pretty wicked, to be fair. I think it should happen. But, Jamie, story 1 out of the way. Look at that. Straight into the game news.
Wow.
We're doing it big this week. But I'm going to take a little pause here from the news so that I can shout out to our lovely audience out there and just remind them that if they are in fact watching this on YouTube, or if they are listening to this on a podcasting platform, that we do straddle the barriers. We are on all the big podcasting platforms. I'm talking Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and we're on YouTube if you want to see us, if you want to see our little faces as we are talking about games. But that is not all, because we are also on internet radio at paisleyradio.com. We're on there Thursdays, 10 p.m, and then it's repeated the following Monday at 10 p.m. If you want to have an old school feel like you're listening to us on the radio, head over to paisleyradio.com. And if you want to reach out to us, if you want to drop us a question, if you want to just say hello, you can get us at SuperShow Pod on Twitter and on YouTube. And someone, Jamie, that left a little cheeky comment on our video last week on YouTube was David Woolmer Jr. So I've picked out this comment to read out this week. Because David says, the whole 24/7 news, insider tips, leaks, and all that stuff make me a little sad for the old days. It really dampens the pure enthusiasm and excitement when a real announcement or trailer drops. And now this comment, David's comment, spoke to me because we've been talking about this a lot recently, and we've just talked about it again today with the skate.
Literally.
In that it does kind of feel like everything now is sort of put out there in little bites, and you don't really get as much of the big excitement these days. You don't get a big like surprise announcements. Everything has always been like teased out in some capacity. Even like you and Chris last week were talking about the fact of that Nvidia massive leak and how that's just being proved true and right again and again. Is this the way forward now? Are we ever going to get back to the days of yore when we got big, exciting announcements?
I mean, I think it'll be tough to get back to the days of yore. It was the expression, like, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube or something like that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like, I feel like the world of insiders and tips and leaks and rumours and all that kind of stuff is, in some respects, the video game announcement equivalent of the toothpaste leaving the tube. And like, I'm happy to admit that I'm part of the problem because I want the best of both worlds. And I do scour these subreddits 24/7, and I do follow people like Jeff Grubb and Tom Henderson and so on and so forth on Twitter, waiting for the latest scoops. But at the same time, you know, I'm the first to complain when I don't get a big headline-making E3 announcement. And we talked last week, me and Chris, about how some studios now are taking to Twitter and sort of slightly more subdued versions of announcements just because, A, they want to get the news out there probably before it's spoiled for them, and B, because it helps with hiring people, with recruitment being harder than ever before in the games industry. I just kind of hope that we can maintain the kind of the bounce we've got at the moment, and that when big press conferences and live streams roll around, as we presume they will in, say, 2 months or so, there's still some surprises to be had. Because, like, things are never going to leak whole hog, and there is still excitement and anticipation around seeing things that you know already existed come to life. And you look at the Skate thing that we just talked about, right? As I joked about, Skate was announced on an EA live stream whenever it was, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. Not even last year, I think it was the year before. And they didn't have a name, they didn't have a logo, they didn't have anything. It was just two dudes who said Skate is back and then talked about how good Skate was. And like, that was disappointing at the time, but now it's bearing fruit, and that leak that we saw this week was exciting. I looked to this summer, for example, and I know not many studios or publishers or anyone basically other than Jeff Keighley has confirmed much about their presence this summer, but I think most people will expect, say, a stream from Microsoft. If they show, let me pick a name out of a hat, Fable, that will be exciting. I know Fable exists. I knew Fable existed before they told me it existed. We've already had a trailer that confirmed the logo and kind of set the tone a little bit. But seeing Fable, like, if it's fucking in-engine or better yet gameplay, that will still be on another level to the announcements and the leaks and the rumours we've had thus far. And I think that can still be the punch that E3-like showcases punch in the future. The pack of punch, yeah.
No, I know, I get what you mean, and I do think you're right to a large degree. Like, there is something, you know, is one thing a whisper about a game or someone mentioning the fact that it's in production and then seeing it as something else. I do kind of miss the days when you had no idea it was coming, and it was like, what? Like, I'm trying to think of one that was like that. Ironically, I'd say the one that just springs to mind. I don't think, or it definitely wasn't on my radar. But it was like Beyond Good and Evil 2. When that trailer dropped at E3, it was incredible, and it was like, wow! Like, didn't even think this would have any idea this would be here, or if it's even being thought about. Apparently, it's not really being thought about, and it's sort of like disappeared ever since. So maybe that's why. But I think, I think you're right. I think you can have both. I think you can have these leaks, you can have the scoops, you can have, you know, industry insiders talking about stuff, and you can still have the excitement of actually seeing the thing proper and seeing the trailers and getting the dates about when games are coming out. So yeah, I suppose there is room for both.
Do you know what would appease me? And again, I'm probably going to contradict something I've said in the past, so I apologise. But I think if a handful more of the low-key, subdued tweet announcements that we've seen so far this year, so Rockstar announced they were in development of the next GTA, Crytek announced Crysis 4, Riot announced a new game, and so on and so forth. Respawn announced 3 Star Wars games. If you just took a handful of them, let's say 50% of them, and turned them into essentially glorified logo reveals that you sent out to some visual effects house and they just mocked it up over the course of a couple of weeks, I would actually be okay with that. Because I know we've complained about that in the past. Like, we always go back to Metroid Prime 4, which, hey, they came out and showed us that logo, and then they haven't said anything else since, and they probably won't do anytime soon. But at the same time, I can remember being with you at E3 in 2018 for the Bethesda press conference, where they did Starfield, and it was just a logo, and everyone was like, well, that's what the Bethesda RPG team are making. And then Todd Howard was like, fuck it, we'll just tell you what we're making afterwards, too. And they did the Elder Scrolls logo. And that moment was a big E3 moment for me, where I was like, oh my god. Like, of course they're making an Elder Scrolls 6, but holy shit, they're showing us a quote-unquote trailer, again, just a glorified logo reveal, for Elder Scrolls 6. This is mental. And I like those moments as much as they are solely designed to play with our hearts. So I don't mind that route. I don't mind being emotionally manipulated by Todd Howard.
I think part of the issue I used to like it so much when they'd show you like even like a logo reveal back in the day, was because to me that meant that they'd sort of reached a certain level of production, and just because you saw the logo didn't mean that it wasn't like they've only come up with a logo. It was like, no, there's a lot more behind the scenes. Whereas it's kind of become apparent these days that the logo can just be the logo, and they actually don't have much more than that, and they're just doing it to sort of like, bring up a little bit of interest and stuff. So actually, the difference between like the big companies and the leakers who can leak a little bit of something and tell you it's being made, there's not that much difference to me now. It's like, just because I see a big logo reveal doesn't mean anything anymore anyway. At least when you hear a leaker talking about it, you know that someone somewhere has gone, oh, look what I've got some cheeky information about this game that they haven't even told you about yet. But my favorite still of recent memory is the Nintendo Pro. The Switch Pro. Like, that was my favourite reason, when the fight between the leakers and Nintendo being like, my sources say it's real, and Nintendo going like, you're on one, mate. Because then I loved that fight. It was great. And still to this day, we don't know if that was true or not, and if Nintendo just haven't released it yet, or it's just been kept so secret.
I hope we get the answer to that one day. Fascinating.
There'll be some secret documents like made, like when they do the American like government documents are made public like 50 years later. There was something like that.
It's all crossed out. It's like the old loading screens in Call of Duty, like Black Ops games, where
redacted,
all the important information's redacted and crossed out.
And they'll just be like, Pro will be in there, and then everything else will be redacted, and there'll be a date, and it'll be redacted, and someone will be like, I told you.
Yeah. And then for some reason we inexplicably reverse back in time to the assassination of JFK, and
always.
Yeah. That's what I've got so far.
Not regularly, that's the wrong word. I watch the Zapruder film probably like once a year.
The what film?
The Zapruder film. The JFK like film where you actually see him getting shot.
Oh, like purely, you just watch the video of it.
Not just, but I'll bump into another person who's done a conspiracy thing about JFK, and then you have to watch the Zapruder film because it's like Zapruder film.
I've never heard of it referred to it. Were you saying Zapruder?
The dude's name was something Zapruder. I think it's Zapruda, but he was the guy who filmed the assassination. Didn't know he was going to be filming the assassination. Filmed the assassination, and over the years, that film has been used like in loads of different ways to create 3D mock-ups and like to work out trajectories, and was it the grassy knoll and all this. And every year I'll bump into a JFK conspiracy that's slightly different, and everything always else has to come back to the Zapruder. So,
big time. I know what I'm watching this evening. That'll send me right to sleep.
Yeah. But hey, do you know what? It's a conspiracy. I'm not saying it's real. I'm not saying JFK, there was anything dodgy going on. I'm sure it was what it was. You've got to be a particular type of person to believe in conspiracies. You've also got to be a particular type of person, Jamie, to be one of our amazing Patreons.
What type of person would that be?
Patrons. Just, the salt of the earth, real good, grounded people that want to support us, keep the lights on, keep us coming back. They want to hear our amazing opinions about JFK and Zapruder films. But I would like to read out a few names because they are fantastic people. And and you know, a lot of these people have been supporting us for a hell of a long time as well. And we are very, very grateful to them. So there are some on screen right now, but I'm also going to read out some names. So I would like to read out Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Bill Caesar, Brimstone, Cole K, Helium Joker, Ice Snort Rock Salt, Jesper Campbell Nielsen, Leo Merger, Mindful Pig, Mr. Anthropic, Nathan Pears, Neil, Dugeld's Dream of Prosthetic Mustaches Daniel, Pastors Guild, Scary Omen, Starfall Kid, The Ballless Beauty, The Gorgeous Gelding, The Yummy Eunuch, The One and Only Mark Clancy, and The Big Dogs. They are Brett Z, aka Shellshock, Doppler, Geometric Potter, Hacksaw Book Read, Manuel Guerrero, Heeswad, and The Uncaged. So yes, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for supporting us. I never get it right. If they're patrons at patreon.com or are they Patreons? Patreon.
I think they're patrons.
Patrons? Okay.
Yeah.
Patrons.
In the same way, like a bar has patrons, or you could be a patron saint.
I see. But no, thank you everyone for supporting us. And even if you're not a patron, thank you for watching the video. Thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing on YouTube. It really does help. But if you would like to support us, head over to patreon.com/SuperShow. Is it SuperShow or SuperShow Pod?
Just SuperShow, I think.
Just SuperShow. And for as little as $2, you can get access to our Discord server, where you can often find us. Me particularly talking bollocks. I don't know. Jamie and Chris have often got a lot more wise and insightful things to say. I think last week, I felt the need to once again bring up the what sort of animal could you beat up thing that came out last year, because some people think they could beat up a chimpanzee, which I thought was insane.
Really? See, I think that's just the size discrepancy thing that makes people confident when it comes to chimpanzees. What they're not considering is the fact that they'll have their face ripped off before the fact they have like a 3 or 4 foot, height advantage makes any difference.
And they'd like pull your arms off as well. Like, they're insanely strong. Don't be lulled by the fact that they're smaller. They are vicious.
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
I don't know how I got here.
Where do you come down on that meter though? Like, what's the biggest animal you? Wait, what was the actual metric? Is it the biggest animal you could kill?
No. I think it was like you'd beat. I'm gonna have to pull it up now. I'm pretty sure I've saved it on my phone, so I'm gonna find it and then.
Oh, perfect. So you can pull it out at parties when you need to entertain guests.
Exactly. Right. Okay. I've got one interesting thing is it distinguishes this list between Brits and Americans, and the Americans, bar none, all think they would do better against an animal than a Brit would. Which
that tracks, yeah.
That's the self-deprecating nature of the Brit, and also the confidence that we associate with the Americans, which is not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying it's bad. I like it, if anything. You ever want to see someone on camera? Like, you ever point a camera at an American? It's like they've been getting media trained since they were about 5 years old. You point a camera at a Brit, and you're about to just like have the most uncomfortable experience.
We're evidence of that. We've been on camera for about 10 years now, and you wouldn't know it watching us.
Oh, come on now. We're a lot better than the average Joe, I reckon. But okay, I'm going to tell you what I think I would come on this list. So,
pause.
I'll do it in order, okay? It starts off, so it just says who you could beat in a fight, it doesn't, and if you were unarmed.
Completely unarmed
starts
in a fight.
Off rat, house cat, goose, medium-sized dog, eagle.
Oof.
I would put myself there.
You think you're killing the eagle or the eagle's killing you?
No, like I could beat an eagle in a fight.
That's an unusual fight, though. Like, what if it just swoops up 100 feet in the air and intermittently comes down to claw at your scalp? You're just grabbing the talons and like tearing it in half.
The thing is, eagles are surprisingly light because they have hollow bones, right? Because they need to be able to fly. So whilst they're strong and they have strong talons and they'll do you a lot of damage, if you can get hold of that thing, I reckon you can smash it.
Okay.
And then the next thing, I'd put myself after eagle. It then goes on. Large dog, chimpanzee, king cobra, kangaroo, wolf, crocodile, gorilla, lion, elephant, and then grizzly bear. I mean, the list makes no sense. People think that they could beat up an elephant, but less likely to beat up a grizzly bear. An elephant, what are you going to do to an elephant?
See, the thing is, I think what makes this confusing as well, and there's a bit of this involved in the elephant problem, but it especially applies to things like a king cobra versus a dog or a crocodile, for example, is that some of these animals we know they have the potential to be extremely lethal, but when we try and play out a scenario in our head of how an unarmed fight would go against them, there are certain tactics wherein we can put these animals in positions where there's nothing they can do. So when, like, people, King Cobra, for example, people might worry about how potentially lethal that could be, or like the venom in a bite or something like that. But people also think about the fact that if you can grip a Cobra in the right way, like, when you grip it just behind the head so it can't do anything, you're just holding a fucking belt in your hand that's wriggling. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you could tie a knot in it. Yeah,
you
exactly.
Can step on a King Cobra.
Yeah.
I
like elephants, like, people probably think, like, it would be very hard to kill an elephant. I don't know how you kill an elephant. Even if it was, like,
you've got no chance.
Static, even if it just stood there, like an inane, like, motionless elephant, I don't know what I'd do to kill it unarmed. Claw its eyes out?
Again.
And then try and rip its brain?
You don't have to kill it, you just have to beat it in a fight. But
that's an interesting distinction. Like, hard to distinguish.
No, elephant, ridiculous. You're getting done immediately. Lion, no chance. Gorilla, no chance. Crocodile's another interesting one, because if you can get on his back, you can, like, do that thing.
But how are you killing it, or how you, whatever verbiage you want to use to win the fight? What are you doing to a crocodile to win?
I guess unarmed you can't. Eventually you're going to get off and it's just going to follow you and eat.
Can't King Kong it and just, like, tear its jaw in half?
No.
Or maybe you could. Can I ask you another hypothetical? Nothing to do with animals, but it is to do with fighting. It's popularised by, well, I don't think it was popularised by it, but I heard it on another podcast I listened to. So imagine you're in a corridor. So no windows or doors, nothing else around you that you could use to your advantage as far as the environment is concerned. There's another person stood opposite you, and let's just say, for the sake of argument, they're of equal height and physical strength to you. They're almost like an identical copy of you, but they're not you. You can't retreat or go backwards, and you have to fight to the death against them. And you are offered either a knife, like, let's say an extremely sharp, I don't know, like, let's say 8-inch knife, or a solid, like, steel baseball bat, and you know that the weapon you don't choose is given to your opponent. Which one do you want?
Oh, and that is the baseball bat.
Interesting, because I'm team knife all the way.
I feel like if you're holding the knife, the bat's just got more reach.
Totally,
a considerable amount, and it's metal. So all they need to do is beat you with the bat until you drop the knife. Whereas if you've got the knife, you're
how sure are you that you're going to be able? Let's say it's me, and let's say I'm going to tell you what my actual tactic would be. I'm going to rush you as fast as I can and get so close within your comfort zone that at best you only have one full swing at me. And if you don't land a blow that even, like, makes me unconscious, I am in your space. You won't be able to wind up another full swing of that bat. And the entire time, every second that passes that you're not swinging me, I'm stabbing an 8-inch knife into you.
Fair, but I'm still going to get you first with the bat.
Yeah, but how do you know you're going to knock me out or kill me with one blow? Well, like, what if I could?
Yeah, but I don't have to. I don't have to.
I think you do. I think you do. I think if I'm in your space, you know what it's like when someone's like being stabbed and they're like and they're fucking doing that motion that looks like I'm fingering someone, but I'm not. I'm stabbing them.
Oh, no, okay, yeah.
So I'm not trying to sway you.
I'm
just making my case for the knife.
I don't know enough about the dynamics of knifey bat fighting. To be honest, it's interesting. I feel like I want to watch some stuntmen who know how to do this. Do it.
See, this is where I wish you had some, like, and like, you will one day, I'm sure, but some crazy, like, science experiment YouTube channel with 5 million subscribers and the budget to do a video that finds out definitively once and for all which one's better.
Oh, I know it. I know a few like that that do have. Yeah, they could do that sort of thing, but I don't think not that I've ever seen. But hey, it's a good question actually. I don't like your hypothetical of, you can get one swing and that's like, no, I could just run backwards and have a good few swings at you.
No, because I would trap your baseball bat under my arm.
Oh, well, yeah, you could actually. You could block it, and then obviously I'm in real trouble.
I'd say leave a comment. I'm going to ask people to leave a comment actually. Team knife or team bat? I'm curious.
Yeah, let us know in the comments down below on the YouTube video. Team knife or team bat? I think I mean, you make a compelling argument, but I'm going to stick. I
think it's going to be 50-50. In terms of the audience opinions.
Yeah, and if you have previous experience, then obviously...
yeah, exactly.
Maybe we'll mention it on the pod. If you've seen it happen in real life, or if you've been in that weird situation, let us know. Well, from one weird scenario to a very real scenario, Jamie, because I would like to know what you've been up to for this last week.
God, I haven't been up to a crazy amount, and that's going to be consistent over the next week or so, because I'm kind of where Chris was a couple of weeks ago, where I am in between jobs right now, and sort of getting ready to get up to speed on a new challenge and a new adventure. So I've had some, chores to do, life chores, admin. So the only game I've played that I thought I'd mention, and I don't even know really why I'm mentioning it, because I don't have much to say about it, I just thought it was kind of weird, is I've been playing a game called Empire of Sin, which this came out like a couple of years ago, was not particularly well received at all. Published by Paradox, who published a lot of sort of like 4X and sort of tactical games, and developed by Romero Games, which is the studio founded by John Romero of Doom fame and his wife. It's essentially a gangster tactics game that like sort of mixes some of the relationship management and sort of like tactical overworld sort of movement options of, say, like a Civilization style game with turn-based tactical combat straight out of XCOM, basically.
Oh, okay.
So you choose, again, in kind of like Civilization style fashion, you choose a significant figure from criminal, mostly US-based criminal history. I gather at least most of them must be real, because Al Capone is an option, although I opted for some Irish guy. And it takes place in Chicago, and basically, like, there's, depending on what level of zoom you look at the map, you are either, a group of units that you were selecting and running around the streets and going up to different businesses, and you might be like approaching businesses and ransacking them, or like going in to talk to NPCs or to talk to leaders of certain gangs and try and, strike deals with them, or, going on wars against people. And then there's also, like I said, like an XCOM style tactical element to it, which is exactly what you think it would be, where you're going in and out of cover and half cover, and you've got action points, and it's kind of a unique blend of the two. I started it because I tried to play some Civ 6 a couple of weeks ago, and I started a new game, and I found the early game very slow, and I realized I wanted to get to something that kind of gave me some of the endorphins that I get from Civ a little bit sooner. And for me, because I'm a sick fuck, a lot of my Civilization 6 endorphins come from just crushing people, like just annihilating entire nations, races, religions, like fucking, if there's a genocide taking place, sign me up. And it was taking a long time to get there in Civ, so I was like, I'm just going to play this tactics game where the objective is literally just to like run brothels and smuggle weapons and murder people.
Cut out the pretense, get straight to the crime.
Exactly. Now you're on my level. So yeah, Empire of Sin, that's on Game Pass.
Nice.
Hashtag not sponsored. So I didn't have to pay for it. The other thing I wanted to shout out, not a full shout out because I haven't finished it yet, but I just think it's good enough to mention, especially if there are anyone in the community who's watching it or watched it as well who wants to join in the discussion, although maybe after I finished it, which is Severance on Apple TV Plus, which is a new kind of like drama, black comedy, sci-fi kind of thing that I think Ben Stiller was involved in the creation of, and lead character played by, I think his name's Adam Scott, right? The guy who was in Parks and Recreation, yeah. And I always remember him as the dickhead older brother in Step Brothers, or as a younger brother, actually.
Yeah, right.
It's a really interesting one. Almost gives me shades of like, thematically gives me shades of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but sort of like with a far darker kind of sterile like presentation, for want of a better way of putting it. So the titular Severance refers to the fact that basically it's this major corporation, fictional obviously major corporation in America, that offers its employees the opportunity, should they want to undergo a process referred to as severance, where they're essentially their brain is split into two compartments, and their chronological perception of what goes on at work and what goes on outside of work are completely separated from one another. So literally, when they get into a lift, a switch flicks in their head, and they only know and experience and remember things that are going on in work and in their office, and they leave and it switches back to their outside self. So that one has no knowledge of what the other is doing.
Why would you opt for that?
Well, the lead character, and this isn't a spoiler, this is explored in the first episode, the lead character has situations going on in their private life to do with, there's some... They're experiencing emotional issues, emotional problems that they're kind of trying to escape from, and I think they find the ability to kind of like have 8 hours a day as they perceive it, 8 hours a day essentially like disappear and have those two disconnects so they can know they can be at work and have no knowledge of who they are or what happened on the outside be taken away from them. They find that helps them in that situation.
Oh, okay. That's strange.
Very strange.
A very strange philosophical thing about.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And as with a lot of stories that kind of take science fiction plot devices with philosophical implications, so far it's exploring a lot of the territory you kind of want it to. I won't say too much, but one of the fascinating things is that and I'll pose this more as a question so it doesn't sound like it's linked to the story, but if you were in the office and you wanted to quit your job, the only part of you that wanted to quit your job would be the part of you that was in the office and perceived the day-to-day, of what happened in there. But the person that asked for the job and went for the job and interviewed would be the part of you that still only existed outside the job. So you would essentially need permission from yourself, a version of yourself that doesn't know what you're going through, to quit your job.
Right.
And so, yeah.
It's basically two people, right? Effectively.
Yeah, well, that's some of the things that the show explores, is if you were in that situation where your consciousness and your perception of the world was split in two, and you couldn't see or communicate with or perceive anything that the other half of you did, they almost wouldn't exist to you. You would feel like two people, one who was only ever outside of work and one who was only ever inside of work. And to what extent would you be able to emote with or sympathize with or empathize for the version of you that you can't perceive? Even if it is you, and it is still a place you're physically going and a time you're physically spending.
I guess it would almost be like you'd need to... They would start to leave you notes or voicemails and stuff saying hey man, I need to get out. I can't be doing this anymore. This job's horrendous. And then you'd be listening to it going, what? But you could never have a direct conversation. It would all have to be done out of sync because you obviously then you could leave them a message going, oh, what do you mean?
That's the point at which I have to not say anything more and just say that anyone interested should watch Severance on Apple TV+.
Interesting. Okay.
And it only just debuted, so it's one season, 9 episodes, so a nice quick fix if you just want something that is satisfactory, and I believe that has been renewed for a second season, but obviously until that's made, it's just one kind of finite season of television, which I do enjoy when that's the case, personally.
Yeah, decent.
Cool. Decent. Yeah, but that's it for me. What about you?
Okay, so I have actually played some new games, amazingly. One of the reasons, the main reason being, as everyone knows up to this point, it's been 8 weeks now. I've been getting over the COVID. It's been rough, but I'm getting there. Haven't felt like playing anything. And then it was half term, right? So this is when, in the UK at least, kids are off for 2 weeks. So my oldest son was off for 2 weeks, and I wasn't quite at the point where I can be, doing whatever and taking him out and playing with him because I'm still feeling a bit rough. I'm still sort of getting there. And he said, because he already, right, he's only 5. But he watches streamers on kids' YouTube. And it's got to the point now where he'll be watching a video of someone playing a game and he's like, oh, this game looks amazing, we need to get it. And he'd been watching a lot of Kirby, The Forgotten Lands. And he really liked the look of it. And so he said, can we get this, Dad? It looks amazing. So I said, well, hold on, because there's another game come out called Lego Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Knight Saga of the whatever it's called.
Yep, you got it.
So I showed him some videos of that, and I was like, what do you reckon? We could play this together, and we could get it on the PlayStation 5, or we can get Kirby, and then you can play some Kirby. Well, you can do co-op in Kirby as well, but I wanted to play Lego Star Wars. And he said, no, I want to play Kirby. So we got Kirby, but he's been playing it, and then my other kid has been playing it as well, but I've been trying to play some of it. And it is very cool. Like, I've been really enjoying Kirby. For people that haven't seen it, it's Kirby's big power is he's got a giant mouth and he can just suck off anything he wants. And he can sort of absorb powers from other people in the world, and he can be like a knight with a sword, or he can get all Zelda, or he can throw these sort of ring blades to attack people, or he can shoot fire or ice. There's a whole load of different things. It's very plinky, very plunky, very Nintendo, very colourful, but plays very well, is a lot of fun, and genuinely, I think it does scratch an itch that I have, that things like mainstream Mario games, or main title Mario games sort of leave out, that you don't get from them because you have to wait so goddamn long between versions. So I've been really enjoying it, and I do think it's a cool platformer. It's got some really fun ideas. There's a lot of playing around with the different powers that Kirby can possess in order to interact with the levels. There's some very fun design ideas. And it's very good. It's a great Switch game as well, because it's something that you can sit down, you can play handheld, and you don't feel like you're missing out on the experience. Like, one of my issues with the Switch is if I was going to play like The Witcher on Switch, I'd be like, this is not how I want to play this game. This is not how I want to interact with it. So no, but been enjoying it a lot.
Sorry, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I was going to say I'm only about. I think I'm like, God, I don't even know. Maybe I'm like a fifth of the way through. Like, I'm not very far through, but my kids have been playing to death and they love it as well.
See, that's what my question was going to be: is does it pass the 5-year-old seal of approval? Like, can he pick it up and play it on his own, or do you need to be looking over his shoulder in case he gets stuck?
My 3-year-old plays it on his own as well. Like,
that's impressive.
He literally says, "Can I play Kirby?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." He doesn't know how to do a lot of the stuff, and he will do the same thing again and again, which is really annoying. You ever watch someone play a game when they're the people that relentlessly, just like in Fallout, search every single like area, box, crate for every pickup? It's that watching a 3-year-old is like that, because they just keep doing the same stuff wrong again and again. It's like, just stop doing it, maybe. Just don't do the thing. Oh, you did it again, you're dead. They kill themselves. They think it's hilarious to just keep jumping off the side and just die and come back, which is annoying. But the 5-year-old's like, he can play it and he's fine. He gets through games. Like, he's finished multiple Nintendo Switch games that I would never be able to get near, just because he has time. Finishes school and he says, "Can I play some of this?" Yeah. So they're really enjoying it. They can play 2-player as well, so you can be Kirby or you can be Kirby's little mate on the Switch. So you can do that, which is good. But because we didn't get Lego Star Wars, blah, 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 Lego, whatever, Skywalker, I then said, maybe we should get that as well, because I wanted to play that.
Because we didn't get the one that I secretly wanted, I'm going to buy the one that I secretly wanted.
Yes, and so I got that, and then they just took over again. So my kids have been playing that religiously, because they played the entirety of Jurassic World, Lego.
I was going to say, every now and then I look at your PlayStation profile, and it's like, oh, Jonesy's played 200 hours of Lego Jurassic World. I think he really likes it. And I have to remind myself it's not you.
It's not me. So yeah, again, and my kids were loving it. Like, they played the whole of Phantom Menace and then got onto Clone Wars. Were playing that, and I think they just enjoy the Lego game feel. Like, they enjoy that.
Yeah,
it's insanely accessible. It's not very difficult. I had a chance to play through some of that on my own as well, and with them as well in 2-player. One thing that really struck me, because I think I've played now from the beginning of Phantom Menace to the end of Phantom Menace. So like a ninth of the game, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
It rattles through. Like, the pace at which you need to get through the story, because it's the film just recreated, obviously, like all the beats from the film. It gets through at such a clip. I did feel like you don't really get to enjoy much of the world. It's very quick to go through, and there are some cool set pieces, like fighting Darth Maul as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, is cool, and the way that they adapt it for Lego is cool, and I don't mind any of that. And even the controls, like the lightsaber controls, are perfectly fine. But it's just the rate at which you go through those games, and those games I find the films even, I find a little inaccessible anyway, because if you actually follow the stories, think about the Phantom Menace. It's like, oh, there's a trade blockade, and then you've got to go to the Senate, and then there's politicians arguing, and then there's all this stuff with Queen Amidala and royalty and people moving people about. But that stuff's so boring when you're talking about a Lego game.
Yes.
It just becomes go to place, stand in area, then go to other place. That is a lot of what I've played so far of this game. It doesn't do anywhere near as much so far as like the Lego Jurassic World games did, or Jurassic Park and Jurassic World did, whereby you're breaking blocks, building blocks, making stuff, doing things. This is much more of a Star Wars game first, I would say, that happens to be Lego, whereas the Lego Jurassic Park, Jurassic World games felt like Lego games first that were set in the Jurassic Park world.
Is any of that to do with kind of like, and again, I don't know how much of this was present in Lego Jurassic World because I didn't play it myself, but the slight perspective shift that has kind of continued to set in through the Lego games, and especially now of the new Lego Star Wars, where at times it almost takes like an over-the-shoulder perspective, and there's far more emphasis on sequences where you're using like a blaster as like a third-person shooter almost, and that kind of stuff. Like, is that influencing it?
That is definitely part of
it. The departure from the more traditional Lego feel.
I think so, and I think you're right. It's because they're trying to make it. They're saying, okay, we need to hit these beats. The movies did this, so we need to follow this path. So I get why they're doing it, but then, like I said, you end up moving through the story beats so quickly that they kind of have to say to you, "Oh, do this bit now. This is how this is going to control." Like, for example, I'll give you an example from Phantom Menace. There's a section where you need to fight the droid army as it's coming toward the Gungans. And so rather than make it like a Lego game where you would be smashing stuff and building Lego and using things in the environment or whatever, they just go for a top-down view where you've got targets and you move the targets around and push a button and you just fire the exploding balls, and it's really boring. And it's like it's devoid of any interest for me. It's something the kids liked because they're like, oh, we can do this and we can shoot stuff, but it's just boring. Like, at no point did I think it was exciting. And then you sort of cut back to being inside the shield where you're controlling like Jar Jar Binks, another Gungan, and you have to fight groups of droids that come through the shield. Again, it's so boring. Like, it's 3 of them will come through, you run to an area, shoot them, and then run to another area and shoot some more. It's just, there's not really any excitement in that for me. And I found that happening quite a lot. You would be in a very small area. You wouldn't be there very long. Then you'd get to the next story point. You'd go to another area. You had to get to another place.
There are hubs and like open world areas in this. Like, this is meant to be like a 80-hour long game if you do all the shit. That's what's not tracking so far. Where does that come into it?
I feel like that will be the case if I played the whole thing from start to finish. Because let's say there's like 9 levels. Each one is one movie. So I can see how that all tops up. But that means that each film area is only 10 hours, roughly. If you're going to say it's 80 hours long.
I think that's if like you went for a platinum though. Like, right, I'm not
right,
the story.
No. So this is kind of my point, right? So if you take the Phantom Menace, you could spend 10 hours playing the Phantom Menace section of that game, and you could explore absolutely everything in that entire level, and you could get every collectible, every whatever you want to get, and it's only taken you 10 hours, but that's the whole of the Phantom Menace done in 10 hours.
Whereas I feel 5 times as long as the film.
Well, but that, I don't know, that to me didn't seem enough. Like, I would rather be able to spend 20 hours inside of one movie to get the most out of it. I mean, 25 hours. So it's weird to say that in a long game, I know it's long and I'm not trying to criticize it too much, and I've only played, Phantom Menace and then a bit of Clone Wars. But it does seem like the story beats happen too fast, you're pushed along too quickly, and the side quest stuff is not that engaging from what I've seen so far. Some of it is really cool, like some of controlling like the spaceships, controlling different characters, the lightsaber stuff, the blaster stuff is cool and does feel really good. But I just feel like they haven't used it maybe into as good an effect as I would have liked. But I'm not as far into it as I should be, so I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to give it some more time, and I'm hoping that it kind of develops and it gets better as I go along.
So what you're saying is join us next week for your thoughts on Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm looking forward to it already.
But one of the mistakes I made as well, and this is a mistake I know is obvious in people, and I do it all the time, and maybe people are, you're an idiot, you shouldn't do it. I hear about a game like Kirby, and I think, it's going to be a bit crap. And then I play it, and I go, that's really fun. Like, this is a cool mechanic, the fact you can suck up like a vending machine and then fire cans, the fact you can suck up a car and like drive around, and the way they've built that world, I like.
Yeah.
And then I see Lego Star Wars, like Skywalker Saga, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be amazing. Like, this is Star Wars, this is Lego, this is going to be epic. And then I play the entirety of Phantom Menace, which is a good movie, by the way. Let me just put that out there.
No comment.
And I'm like, oh, if that whole area level movie, whatever you want to call it, is not great, I don't hold out much hope for the subsequent levels and things getting any better. I just feel like it's going to be more of the same built around the plot points of the subsequent movies. So I'm a little. I'm worried. I'm not going to lie, Jamie. I'm worried for the rest of this game.
That's fair enough, and that's kind of disappointing to hear, just because, like, again, I feel like I had heard really positive stuff around this title, not just in terms of like audience reception and sales, which I think we could talk about a little bit more later, but also just like it was cool to see a Lego game of any kind kind of return to the forefront and being talked about. I watched streamers playing it upon launch. The reviews were good. As I just mentioned, the sales were good. It just feels like it'd been a little while since something like this had happened to a Lego game. Because you mentioned like Lego Jurassic World. That's like a title that went completely over my head. Like I knew that came out. I remember that coming out. But I just felt like I had no interest to play it. I'd completely gone off the boil with Lego stuff. Even the I know they kept doing like there were like 3 different Lego Batman films, and in the games, and then there was the one about the DC supervillains, and then they were also doing like the Marvel heroes stuff as well. And we were getting sent copies of some of these games, and I was still going like, okay, great, like yeah, it's got 600 different Marvel superheroes in it, but like I don't know,
I'm liking it more I did play some of the Marvel one, and I didn't really like that. I felt like you could just. It wasn't a good open world game or hub world game. It wasn't a great Marvel game. It wasn't a great superhero game, but it was all mashed together with Lego, and it was like, okay.
Yeah.
This is better. This feels more directed because it does feel like a Star Wars game. But I feel like maybe they've let down the Lego side a bit, which I did enjoy in the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World Lego games. A lot more of that, like you're saying, you didn't play it, but a lot more of that is based around like
holding down triangle as the character starts like rustling their hands around, and all of a sudden a gigantic turret gets made out of what was once a box.
Yes, it's like everything's Lego. You have to smash everything, and you have to kind of figure out, oh, I need to go and do this, I need to go and do that, I need to build this, I need to search for that. And this kind of forgoes that so that you're basically just running around and just running to checkpoints. There's a lot of that in the first game, and maybe that's why it's run to this point, click a button, run to this point, click a button, run to this point, click a button, and you're like, I'm just running. Like I don't need to interact with anything.
Yeah, I will say though, again, without trying to sound like I'm sort of like, denying your, how you feel about the game or your experiences, but like that, I feel like that kind of slightly reductive take is what happens when someone's just playing a video game that they're not vibing with. Because any video game can be reduced to do like, oh, it just kept telling me to go here, and then when I got there, it told me to kill these people, and then when that was done, I just had to go somewhere else. It was like, but like, I feel like any video game can feel like that. It's just it's less representative of like how the game is structured, and more representative of the fact that you're just not enjoying it or you're finding it boring.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe there's a part of that, but I think but then it does feel like that is a core component of the game. Though is that most of what you're doing, it's not even fetch quests; it's just reaching waypoints. And even when you get to the waypoint, like it doesn't feel like there's much around you to do and get and sink yourself into, which I was surprised at. So, for example, in the Gungan city, like there's things you can run around and interact. Is
that one of the hub areas, like where you can just like run around?
Yes, yeah. So it's one of the first early ones that you get to in Phantom Menace, where you go under the lake or under the sea, and there's a whole city down there.
Okay.
And you can run around, and there's stuff you can do, and you can get you can access things and unlock things to get additional coins or whatever, like collectibles. But even that, but a lot of the way the Lego games work is a lot of it is that you have to play the game through, unlock stuff, and then you can go back in free play to access other characters so that you can get those collectibles. So you can't even interact with a lot of the world on your first run through anyway. You can see it, but you can't do it. So you have to come back. So it's not even as if you could. It's not even as if you could do it. It's not even as if you could go into the hub world and take full advantage of the hub world and then move on, because you have to just go to the waypoint. So which isn't the case of most hub world or open world games. Like you can go and do side quests and you can get involved in, a lot of that stuff. So I do need to spend more time with it, and I do think it is a pretty game. It does feel good. The use of the blasters and the lightsaber stuff is cool. It is like the other issue is because it's like a game for younger players. It's very easy, so you're not going to be able to say, oh, actually, it doesn't matter because there's some great boss fights. Like there's some cool set pieces. There's Darth Maul, Boba Fett. You can fight or Jango Fett even. You do these like boss fights. Obviously, all the different fights you're going to do throughout the Star Wars saga. But because they're easy, it's not as if you can think, don't worry, because when I get to Kylo Ren, it's going to be amazing. It's not. It's going to be over just as quickly as most of the other fights in the game are over. But there's something to be said for playing that series through in Lego, which I do like.
Yes.
Two other things I will mention. It's cool that they allow you to choose to start in The Phantom Menace or A New Hope, because obviously you can start chronologically or you can start where the movie started in time. So you can start with A New Hope and you can like work your way around. But in the other, you can't start wherever you want because most of the levels are locked. But you can pick between those two, which I did think was really cool. There's a nice little touch anyway. The other thing I was going to mention, which I've completely forgotten. What was it? I can't remember.
Co-op.
Co-op is cool, like normal. It's Lego Star Wars co-op.
I was trying to guess what you were.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was going to mention. There was something else I was going to say now for the life.
The comedy.
No, it wasn't the comedy. Oh, frustrating. It'll come to me in like.
If it was, what's the expression? Like if it mattered, it will come back or something like that. Or if it was important, like it will come back to you. I wouldn't have forgotten
in the first place. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. I'm trying to be the more like supportive. I want to be the shoulder to lean on here. I don't want to tell you you've made a mistake. Like what I'm saying is it will come back. Give it time. Be patient. Life finds a way.
Life does indeed find a way. So yeah, there you go. That's the two games that I've been rocking this week.
Oh, yeah.
So at this stage, Kirby is easily ahead.
Is Kirby your game of the year 2022 at this point?
Very possibly.
It might be. I'm trying to think of what else you've played and liked this year.
I started to play Horizon, started to play Dying Light 2. I'm waiting until I'm feeling that. Sifu was very good actually. I'm the problem is with being sick and not being able to play games because I didn't feel up to it.
Yeah.
It's now pushed me into a weird place where I'm like, I don't want to get back into them until I feel properly better and then I can actually give them the time they deserve.
Yeah, well, the good news is there's like no major AAA releases at this point for, I don't know, like 3 months or something stupid. So you can relax.
There is a nice little lull. And something else, well, see, I was going to say it's not AAA, but is indie at least, and is staying indie for the time being, is Kojima Productions, Jack.
Indeed, yeah, because we actually talked about this last week. Very poorly timed speculation about whether or not Kojima Productions would be joining the PlayStation Studios family, because I think Kojima himself spoke on the matter like less than 24 hours after we recorded. Great.
Yes, I think it was the Friday morning. So yeah. not even 24 hours, more like 12 hours after we were talking about it. Yes, obviously there was speculation that Kojima Productions were going to be bought by PlayStation, and it was definitely fueled by the fact that PlayStation had included the Death Stranding imagery in their PlayStation banner. To add fuel to that tasty little fire, Kojima then retweeted the banner with no text, no words or anything. So a lot of people took that as like a confirmation, which I think if the Twitterverse is going off and saying, hey, look at what PlayStation have done, this is what we think it means, and then he just retweets that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically confirming it.
Yeah, because when I woke up and tried to catch up on what was going on through Twitter, I saw that before I saw any clarification. So I spent 30 seconds thinking, oh my God, it's happening. Like, they did it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely fair to think that. It was funny, though, because, of course, not long after, I think Kojima had realised his mistake. And he actually tweeted out and said, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, but Kojima Productions has been and will continue to be an independent studio. Sort of putting those rumours to bed for the time being. Anyway, so Kojima Productions is staying independent, is not being bought by PlayStation.
Yeah.
Or is it just Kojima being Kojima and it is being bought?
Well, See, I don't mind you phrasing it as a question like that, because that's kind of you leaning into the conspiracy side of things. But this whole, situation, whatever you want to call it, did open my eyes to the weird side of, the kind of the console war, kind of the, I almost called like patriotism, but it's not really it's about a console, not a country. But you know how some people are so staunchly in favor of one platform over another, and there were a lot of PlayStation fans involved in this, and someone quote tweeted Kojima's statement where he, clarified that they would be staying independent, and said basically words to the effect of, look at the replies in this and look at how bizarrely delusional some fans are. And what the replies were weirdly full of was hardcore PlayStation fans who were convinced that he was lying, or reminding people that apparently when Bluepoint were sort of, again, prematurely and accidentally announced as being a part of the PlayStation family by a banner in the exact same way, they made a very similar statement where they were like, no, Bluepoint is still independent, sorry for the confusion. And then, of course, they were acquired just months later. So people were going, oh, yeah, that's convenient. Well, this is exactly what Bluepoint said. I can't imagine to be that blindly invested in a particular console, in a place where you play video games, the ecosystem with which you choose to play your video games, that you're just saying, oh, well, you're lying. This is a lie, because I know the truth. And the truth is that you're being bought. Your company's being acquired. I know it. You don't. Get in your place. I can't understand that way of thinking.
No, it is strange, and it is weird that some people get so invested in these things. Especially when you can just wait. Just say, oh, okay, take it as it is, and then just wait a little bit longer.
Patience.
Find out one or the other. It is bizarre, but at the same time, I think we talked about earlier, people are so obsessed these days with leaks and insider info that I think everyone's always looking for the next big scoop. So I think that obviously feeds into the whole thing. But Kojima wasn't the only person coming out with some non-news, I guess is the way I would frame it, because Cory Barlog of God of War Ragnarok fame came out to do a little video and basically said, we haven't got anything to show you yet. Talking about God of War Ragnarok, which is supposed to be coming out this year, James.
So it is coming out this year. It's funny you mention it, James.
So it's quite surprising that he's sort of, at this point in the year, to say we haven't got anything else to show you, because obviously we've already seen a trailer, we've already seen some footage from the game, we've already seen some character models and things like that. So it's not that we haven't seen anything and they were just not showing anything, but it is quite interesting, I would say, to be in a position where he's saying, because this is what before the podcast, because you said something interesting, which was if it was getting delayed, they would have announced the delay. He hasn't announced the delay.
Yes. That's my feeling, is that why do you wheel out Cory Barlog on camera to make a statement to say, thank you for your support and please continue to be patient? Why would you, get the man himself up in front of the studio to make a non-statement if you've got something to say? If it's a certain thing that it's not making it out this year, what better time than now to say it? What are you waiting for? Just say it. People would go, okay, yeah, cool, fair enough. Thanks, Cory. And get on with their lives. I think the fact that they were this confident to make the most public of public statements in the end of April and not delay it suggests that it's coming out this year. That's my hot take.
Very possibly. And it was all linked to the fact that God of War is celebrating its 4th anniversary. And so was it just that they said, do you know what? We want to get Cory Barlog to just maybe do something, show something of God of War Ragnarok. But they were like, well, we don't have anything we want to show, and therefore we'll just do a message. But we know we need to reference the fact that we haven't shown it. So it kind of just became a little bit of a weird video, where it's got some people saying, oh, that's interesting, that he's sort of saying that it's not ready for the fans to see yet. Because effectively, what he said is, we really want to show you stuff, but it's not quite there yet, so you need to give us the time. I actually have a quote here. He said, we are perfectionists. Everyone's tightening up on the graphics on level 3. There is so much on right now that I just wish we could share it with you, but it's just not ready to be shown. So it could absolutely, as you've said, be that it's nothing to worry about at all, and they just wanted to have him out there to say, don't worry about it, and just to say happy birthday to God of War.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Jamie.
Oh, here we go. Tinfoil hats, everyone.
I wonder if it's that they can't tell us it's being delayed until 2023. Because if they tell us it's delayed till 2023 and it's not ready for 2023, then they'll have to come out and say it's delayed again.
This isn't no. Okay.
Potentially, it's being delayed until an unknown time in the future, and they are not ready to announce the delay yet. So
this is the most batshit stuff that you like. That you've like. In what world do you think there's people like putting Cory Barlog out there and filming him doing a 4-year anniversary thing, and they're worried about, oh, we're not sure if we get this video game out in the next 20 months, so we're not going to even commit to a delay. Like, I think that's the idea that that's even being remotely entertained is bonkers to me.
It's also because Cory been taken off God of War, right?
Well, he's not directing the new one. Is the way.
So it makes sense. It makes sense, right, for him to be there talking about God of War 4-year anniversary. So maybe it's just the case that it's like, well, he's not directing Ragnarok, so it's not that weird that Ragnarok's there only because it's not really what it was about.
Yeah, but also then he brought it up like most of this video is them talking about Ragnarok, saying they're working hard on it, saying there's nothing to show yet, but there will be, and asking for patience. Like, it took up too big a chunk. Again, if you're going to delay it, delay it. They know that, and they didn't.
It did take a big chunk. I think it's not ready yet. I think it's not going to be out this year. I think it's going to get delayed. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I didn't even think with the first trailer that we saw that looked like a game that was in the state that they tried to say, look, it's amazing, it's all good, we're nearly ready to go. I think it looked weird from the get-go.
I'm not going to make any mad conclusions or jump to any conclusions about that game looking like it was ready or good to go, because it's too much information you can learn from a trailer. But the idea that you can look at that trailer and say, oh, that looks weird, it might not be out to 2024, I want whatever you're smoking, because that sounds like fun. You're talking about it being 2 years away, Jonesy.
February 2024 is
I think that's bonkers. I think that's bonkers.
Someone make a note, because that is what I'm saying. And that's not 2 years away, it's less than 2 years, because we're in April right now.
I think it's madness, sheer madness. I honestly do. 22 months away. Like, I think it's impossible. I think it's nigh on impossible.
Well, from one thing that we know is coming out, because it's coming out at some point, to something else we now know is coming out, the It Takes Two movie, which is been announced and is being made by Dwayne The Rock Johnson's production company, $7 Productions, along with Amazon Studios and DJ2 Entertainment. So this has been announced. Obviously, The Rock is producing it, I understand, or with his company. One of the interesting things we were chatting about is the possibility that he may not just produce it and may actually be in it. But I think this sounds wicked. Like, It Takes Two is a fantastic game. It does lend itself to sort of an adaptation, although it would be weird, because I'm not quite sure how you would adapt such a meandering game that covers so much in genre and feel into a film. But it's pretty exciting. It's cool that The Rock's attached to it in some capacity, even if it is just as a producer. But it would be cool if he was in it.
It would be interesting. I think it makes sense as a Rock vehicle in that It Takes Two at its core is it's like a comedic action adventure game, which those are the exact kinds of films that The Rock likes to make. It's, very family friendly, or at least accessible action adventure films with a comedic twist on it. Nothing too self-serious. That said, I still think, kind of as we discussed when this game came out, and especially when it won things like the Game of the Year award at the Game Awards, I know we started to discuss It Takes Two with a slightly more critical slant, and I think that those are some of the rougher edges that they would really need to smooth out before someone like The Rock got involved. And I can't imagine his production company and him himself doing anything but smoothing some of those rougher edges, because again, like as we discussed at the time, and you and I were kind of briefly discussing before we recorded, this is still a weird game with a lot of weird elements. Like, you think about like the weird talking love book that guides this couple through the process, and like, is that something that you could see a film starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson keeping, or would you think they'd take that role and kind of turn it into something else? I don't know. Even the core theme, people received it pretty well at the time, because I think it's a fun enough game and was a diverse enough game. But some people after the fact may be slightly critical of the idea of the message at the core of the game, which is that, like, hey, if you're in a relationship that's not working, you should, work really hard to get over those problems and to get over that hill and mend your relationship. Theoretically good advice, but the game also takes this sort of like, hey, divorce is the enemy kind of stance, when in actual fact, in a lot of relationships, divorce is not the enemy. Divorce is actually the answer, the solution, and the healthiest option for both people. The game kind of seemed to overlook that, and I know, don't get me wrong, that's not the point of the game. Like, that's not something that really needed to, be considered from a critical perspective, but it's still a thought that I think is worth considering as we talk about the idea of Dwayne The Rock Johnson kind of movifying and comedifying some of those ideas. It's weird, and I think it will change a lot, basically, is what I'm saying, from the game to the movie. I think a lot will change.
No, I completely agree with you. And it's being written or adapted for screen by Pat Casey and Josh Miller, who were the guys behind Sonic the Hedgehog movies 1 and 2. So they're well and truly in that, that adaptation, family-friendly area. They're not going to do anything crazy and risk pissing people off by having,
Hot take. I wouldn't be surprised if they even technically took the divorce element out of this. I wouldn't be surprised if this was, say, a mostly happy couple who were caught in the middle of some kind of a fight or a disagreement when the transformation process took place, and all it is them having to work together to get back to their human forms and becoming even more in love with each other and remembering some of the things they'd forgotten about each other in the process. That's my hot take.
Yeah, no, I could imagine them doing something like that. It's kind of a weird one because Joseph Fares and Oscar Wolantis are going to be on as producers as well, who produced the game originally. So they're going to be there trying to keep it true to obviously what you think that the idea they had in the first place. But then you've also got the fact that it's been written by Sonic the Hedgehog writers who are going to be keeping it very kid friendly and going to be making sure everything. Well, not just kid-friendly, but family-friendly, and making sure everything, like you said, isn't too weird in one way or the other. Like, they're not going to be trying to push any sort of crazy agenda or anything like that. So, but then it's kind of a weird one because I kind of worry that you're going to lose what the game is about if you go too far down that road. Because, like, if they did what you said and they had a mostly happy couple, then you kind of lose the idea of nearly every level in that game was things that the couple had kind of done wrong, or one of them. So let's say there was a level where May has she's just so obsessed with work that she doesn't pay any attention to her husband and the kid, and then that's kind of revealed through the level and how it's set out, and that she's so into her engineering and blah blah blah. You then get ones where it's the levels of where like Cody is plays relentlessly with his daughter, and he makes all these fantastical worlds and plays with her a lot, but is just not really like a very responsible. The idea is he's not that responsible, and he's not that good at like focusing on his relationship with his wife. So you lose a lot of those themes if you try and make it. They're a pretty happy couple, but they're just having a bit of a fight.
I think you can keep those exact themes and exact ideas. I just think that they're going to minimize, or at least take the focus off of the strain that it's putting on this relationship and this marriage. And I don't think they're going to make this be about a couple that are basically getting divorced and trying not to tell that, or trying to figure out how to break the news to their daughter.
Yes. So for people that don't know, like the game is the couple, as Jamie mentioned, turned into toy figures who are then put through lots of different scenarios by the Book of Love, which is a book with like a Hispanic accent who's like, hey guys, you're gonna fall in love. And he's got like a tash, and he's a book, and he's the Book of Love. I can see what you mean. If you just soften some of those themes and you have it almost like more a couple arguing and being a bit just nitpicking at each other. Yeah, maybe. I suppose you could get there. You could go down that route, sure, I guess.
The other hot take I'm going to go throw out there, there's something about The Rock, which is like, when I think about the big films that The Rock has been in, he's like a leading man, he's super likable, he's funny, he's charming, he's like a captivating star, but he's never really presented as like the romantic lead. There haven't been that many films that I can remember where like The Rock's always meant to be a hunk. He's always meant to be eye candy and desirable, but you can't imagine like a true at least I can't imagine like a true rom-com starring The Rock. Like, he doesn't always engage with the more romantic elements of films in the way that like
What's the one he just did with Emily Blunt, the Disney one?
Oh, it's like Jungle Cruise or something,
right? So I guess that's comedy, romance sort of thing.
Yeah, but I guess even if she is a love interest, and I haven't seen the film, but like, are there like romantic scenes? Is it like I need to actually fact check this. Has like Dwayne The Rock Johnson ever done like an on-screen kiss? He must have done, but like for some reason I can't imagine it. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle the inherent romantic parts of marriage and relationships and relationship repair with what I see as kind of a sort of somewhat more sterile presentation that sometimes surrounds The Rock, because he goes after all a closeted homosexual.
Right. I would just love to be in the room when Joseph Fares and The Rock are there and they're disagreeing. I think that would be amazing.
I think that Joseph Fares' name gets put on something like this as like a token thing, so like people go, hey, look, the original guy is still here. I don't think he's even in the room sometimes. Like, it happened the other week, didn't it, with The Last of Us, where Neil Druckmann is like a producer on The Last of Us TV show. He's even directing some of the episodes.
Right.
Seems like a big deal creatively. And then Pedro Pascal put out a statement the other day where he's like, yeah, I haven't played the games. I haven't even looked at the games. I want my portrayal of my performance to be as far removed from any of that as possible. So
I hate that as a take. Pedro Pascal to say, when he said that, like, I haven't even played the games because I want my takes. Like, no. You just haven't because you're not a gamer or you're not into that kind of game or whatever. Don't make it up and say that it's like a purity of your craft or whatever, that you don't want to be sullied by the source material. That's like someone who's playing a character based on a book going, no, I have no intention of reading the book. I don't want my portrayal to be ruined by the character on the page. It's like, then you're being negligent in the fact that you can't portray that character.
Negligent, or just not wanting to let something influence what you would do naturally too much. Like, do you want to find your core inherent, like, instinctual reactions to, say, the dialogue or the scenarios, rather than having in the back of your mind, well, like, Troy Baker did do this, or he did deliver that line that way. Like, do you want to remove yourself from that, maybe?
No, I don't think they should, because that's not their job. Like, how can they... If they use their instinctual reaction, that could be completely wrong. Like, Joel is a very certain kind of character.
But that's why they're hired as an actor, right? They're hired to give their instinctual reaction. Because if it wasn't based on something else, then everything's instinctual. Yeah, because if it was an original IP, then that's all it is. It's a collaboration between the actor and the director to find the right way of, emoting those lines and those scenarios.
Oh, yeah, no, to emote them, but come on, man. The actor just comes and stands there and says someone else's words. And then someone says, can we try that again like this? Can we try that again like this? Can we try that again like this? And then in the edit, the director goes, use that one. Use that one. And the actor's portrayal on, whatever. Maybe I'm just being mean to the actors.
Jonesy coming out with some hot takes on acting. Who would have thought? Speaking of hot takes on acting, I'd like to confirm, like, a slight redactment, and also like just to confirm for anyone out there, it seems as though Dwayne The Rock Johnson did in fact kiss goodness, Gal Gadot in the Netflix film Red Notice.
Red Notice, but you're right though, because even in Red Notice, it's not romantic at all. Like, she plays, she plays like the almost like the enemy character to them for like nearly the whole movie, and it's only in a very slim part that there's any kind of romance, and it's not even romance. It's not like wooing. It's like a foregone conclusion, and then they do a kiss or something. Like, it's you're still absolutely right. There's no romantic dimension, I would say, in most of the movie to those two characters.
I can't find many other things. Like, it seems like there's a scene in the kind of the 2017 Jumanji film where obviously Dwayne is playing, like, he's playing someone else who's got stuck inside his body, right? That was the whole gimmick. And it seems like there is a kiss scene there, but it's like a comedic one, not a romantic one. Like, there's not much out there. I think he might also kiss Kevin Hart, again, for comedic effect and Central Intelligence. But yeah, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, not a big smoocher when it comes to the silver screen.
There you go. Not a big smoocher. Well, I do think he'd make a good Cody, though. I think he could do it. If he was going to be Cody, he would be May.
He's very charismatic. He's a great leading man. He's got good comedic timing. He ticks a lot of the boxes that you want for this kind of adaptation, and it gets to join the unbelievably long list of video games that are being adapted into some kind of other form of media lately, largely all by the same company.
Yes, so as we mentioned, DJ2 Entertainment, who are the ones who are who are part of this, have also involved in a long list of game adaptations. You were sort of giving me the lowdown just before the pod, so hit us up with some of the other things they're tied to.
Well, this is all just the one company. As you mentioned already, Jonesy, they were obviously involved in the production of the 2 Sonic the Hedgehog films we've had thus far. And they've also got the rights for, and I'll say up front, not all of these are movies. Some of these are TV shows and some of these are animated. But there are projects in the works for Life is Strange, Tomb Raider, which I guess would be also in addition to the existing Tomb Raider franchise that I presume is ongoing after that movie a couple of years ago. I don't know if that was a one-off, but I thought it wasn't. Disco Elysium, Sleeping Dogs, My Friend Pedro, Little Nightmares, Ruiner, and as people might have seen making the news also this week, Streets of Rage, which has actually got a scriptwriter attached, which is Derek Kolstad of John Wick fame, which seems like that seems like a neat way of lining things up to get the John Wick dude to do a Streets of Rage thing. And I think the other John Wick dude is, whose name escapes me, because there are 2 of them, right? They were like co-directors at first. He's doing Ghost of Tsushima, which got its screenwriter like a week ago. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm not sure I like the sound of that.
Well, a Ghost of Tsushima movie from one of the directors of
John Wick.
Well, so I think it's one that, like, they both directed the first one, and then one of them stayed and did the rest of the John Wick films, and the other one went off and did like that film called Nobody with Bob Odenkirk.
Oh,
in it
yes.
I think that was it, but I might be wrong. But then I also forget, like, who's the person who did Atomic Blonde and films like that with Charlize Theron.
Oh my goodness, I can't even think of who did that now. I'm so bad.
I'm looking up the names. Chad Stahelski. Chad Stahelski. He's directed John Wick's 1 through 4. And
David Leitch was the guy who's attached to Atomic Blonde, who's also John Wick.
Right. So Chad Stahelski was John Wick 1 through 4 and Ghost of Tsushima. David Leitch, did you say his name was?
Yes, David Leitch.
He was. So he's the guy who left John Wick after the first one to do Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, Hobbs and Shaw, and now Bullet Train, which actually looks pretty good. And then this other guy who's doing the Streets of Rage thing is Derek Kolstad. So how does he fit into things? Derek Kolstad wrote the first John Wick. Derek Kolstad has written all of the John Wicks. Oh my god.
This is getting very incestuous.
Derek Kolstad's also writing a Just Cause film, according to Wikipedia.
Wow, okay. So now every game is being turned into some form of other media, apparently.
Yeah. Derek Kolstad also hired by Netflix to write the upcoming Splinter Cell anime series. Just the same people working on everything. Like someone, 18 months ago figured out we should make more video game adaptations and get the same 5 people to do all of it.
It's the problem with voiceovers in video games, though, isn't it? So it's the same people do everything. So as soon as they figure out someone you can adapt a video game for TV or film, oh my god, you're hired. You're hired by everyone.
Yeah. The Sonic and Hedgehog guys, they'll probably be working for the rest of their lives based off how much money those 2 movies have made, and the fact that they somehow cracked the code of making a video game adaptation that's not like pure garbage.
Yes, no, absolutely, yeah, because they must have been really worried about anything like that was getting made for a lot of money. It's like, this could be trash. But there you go. One last question. Yeah. Who do you think will play May if The Rock does play Cody? Because I have a couple of ideas.
I mean, you mentioned Jungle Cruise. I could see it being like an Emily Blunt style casting, but I just don't think you can go back to the Emily Blunt well that soon. So who else is like her?
I thought of Natalie Dormer from Game of Thrones.
I don't think. I mean, she's English and she has the kind of like the attitude side of things down. I don't think she has the chemistry with The Rock.
I don't think anyone can have the chemistry with The Rock. He is a man mountain of pure muscle who doesn't do romantic stuff, doesn't kiss unless it's a pre-set thing with Gal Gadot. I don't think there's much chemistry going on there in general.
Do you have any other ideas? Because I've now got some, having done a little bit of rummaging.
No one else. No one else.
I think I've got like 4 names I can throw at you.
Oh yeah, go on.
So Anne Hathaway.
Oh, okay. I can see that.
She can be cool and she can be funny, but she can also be slightly neurotic.
Yes. Yeah.
Controversial one. Don't try not to channel your inner Jeremy, but Brie Larson.
Brie Larson.
Yeah.
What?
Why not?
She's terrible.
She's young. She's hip. She's trendy. She's super popular online.
I'm hip. Is she like? I'm not being Jeremy, but I've only seen Brie Larson, or that I remember, in Marvel, and she just seemed wooden even in that. Like,
okay, bro, you need to go and watch Room, because that's a legit movie.
Okay, Room. All right, Room. I'll check it out.
And also, what's it called? Like Short Term 12 or something like that. Anyway,
to be fair, I will give her. Do you know what I will say? I did not like Kristen Stewart when I'd seen her in a few things, and I've seen her in more stuff now, and I think she's wicked. So maybe I'll Brie Larson. That'll be my Brie Larson thing. Will be follow that, and I'll actually end up thinking she's amazing.
True. We'll see. The Brie Larson, comeback trail begins now. With It Takes Two. Jessica Chastain, maybe, but and then Charlize Theron.
Nah, I could maybe imagine. Nah, I don't think Charlize Theron would work.
Okay.
I mean, she's a fantastic actress, but I can't see her in that role. Like,
no, it's fine. You've made your point. Rebel Wilson. New and improved thin version of Rebel Wilson. The on-screen debut of Thin Rebel.
Thin Rebel. Nah, maybe. No, I can't see it.
She's supporting at best. Like, if Joseph Fares had the foresight to write a fat, like, comedy side character into it, then she'd be all over it. But
what is her name? Who's the comedy actress from Bridesmaids, the main one?
From
Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig
from Outside the Curtain.
Do you know what? Like, she's legitimately funny, so she would do a good job.
Also, when she was in the last Wonder Woman movie, she did have the curly. Yeah. She had the curly hair.
She's like the cheetah or something, right? She turns into a leopard or something.
Oh, it's awful.
At the end of it.
Yeah.
I never saw it, but it looked atrocious.
Oh, that film is so bad. Yeah, it's genuinely terrible. But look, I think we can tell that based off of the It Takes Two movie, there are some real darlings who are knocking around in the sort of adaptation world and in the gaming world, because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to turn a game into something else. And so that's why people fall in love with certain people and then they just work with them ad nauseum. And another darling of the gaming world is former Uncharted director Amy Hennig, who, Jamie, is making a new Star Wars game. We already knew that she was working...
No, sorry, Lindsay, I think you've got mixed... This news story's from like 5 years ago. You've got things mixed up. Like, this isn't new.
It could be from back in the day, Jamie, but no, this is absolutely a new Star Wars game, because she didn't make the old Star Wars game because they didn't make the old Star Wars game. So now they're making a new Star Wars game because they didn't make the old Star Wars game. We already knew that Amy Hennig's Skydance new media company were making a game with Disney, which is a Marvel game, which is we don't really know much about. But like I said, it's now been announced that they're making a Star Wars game, which I think brings the grand total of Star Wars games in the works to about 175. So,
176, because you got to remember, Respawn are making 3, not 2.
Right. No, I'm joking, of course. But there are how many? Seven Star Wars games?
I think it's 7. It depends on how many you count. Obviously, Lego Star Wars has just come out, so we can't count that anymore. Respawn are making 3. Ubisoft are making 1. Aspyr are remaking KOTOR. Quantic Dream are making 1. There's this one, so that would be 7.
That's 7.
I think Zynga are still making one for mobile, so that would be 8, I guess.
Doesn't count.
Then, yeah, let's call it 7. That's conservative estimate, 7.
Which, at any other time in gaming, no one would be that surprised, because Star Wars games with Lucas Games were like relentless. They just kept coming out. They were always coming out. They were milking that franchise for everything. I used to love the Star Wars games on the SNES back in the day, and then obviously with all the PC games, the Jedi Knight games, KOTOR, all that sort of stuff, it's almost like we had a bit of a break and now they've gone mental again. So maybe we should be happy. No, there wasn't even that much of a lull because, of course, there was like the 2 Force Unleashed games. There was, and then they were still pumping out like Battlefront, stuff like that. So no, I'm not even going to give them that. It's been relentless forever, hasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Basically, the period of time in which it was less relentless was when EA kind of got the exclusivity deal, and never really were able to quite make the most of it. Partly because they were cancelling things like the project we mentioned, Project Ragtag, which is, of course, what Visceral Games were making, the former Dead Space devs, before that got cancelled. It is somewhat ironic to me that EA, do you remember they cancelled Project Ragtag and they shut down Visceral and they were like, yeah, single-player games are dead. And now, however many years on, the writer and co-writer of Project Ragtag have been rehired by Disney to make another action-adventure Star Wars game. Meanwhile, EA, what are they doing? They're ground up remaking the original Dead Space. So like everything's gone completely full circle from that point, and it just makes you wonder like how much work and how many cool games did we lose unnecessarily? But yeah. It's a weird time for Star Wars, and I've got mixed emotions on having this many projects of these scattered natures being worked on simultaneously, because
it does dilute the brand or the message or whatever somewhat.
Yes,
I mean, so
exactly.
This being a narrative-driven action-adventure game set from Amy Hennig and her company sounds great. Like, that sounds fantastic.
Right.
Because, of course, what do you think? Like, oh, okay, Uncharted. So that's a fantastic narrative-driven action-adventure game. This is going to be a Star Wars game. It's not going to be maybe a FromSoft style, what is it called? Jedi
Fallen Order.
Thank you, Jedi Fallen Order-esque game. This is going to be narrative and an action adventure, which sounds amazing, and it's an original story coming from the Star Wars galaxy. That all sounds great, but at the same time you do then have to wonder, well, hold on, with all of the games that are coming out, are they going to start trying to make it different for just the sake of trying to make it different? And because they say, oh, it's an original story, yet everything seems to be an original story from the Star Wars universe at the moment as well. So is that kind of a non-thing? It's just going to be some crappy, oh, this is canon now, but it's irrelevant because it's just set off somewhere in the universe and it's got nothing to do with characters you like. It's sort of a brand new weird thing. So I'm kind of with you. I think it could be, in that I'm slightly concerned. It could be amazing. It could be fantastic.
Yeah, I think the reason that we've both got this sort of like capacity where we're leaving room in our heads and our imaginations for this to work out is because, like we said, especially when it comes to EA, when they had the exclusivity deal, Star Wars games have been consistently dropping the ball for so long now. And so many people found the Battlefront games disappointing in different ways. Obviously, I think there was a bit of a redemption story there when it came to Battlefront 2 eventually, but they were still disappointing in the grander scheme of things. Jedi Fallen Order was good, but it didn't, set hearts racing around the world. It wasn't the dream Star Wars game that some people have had in their head. You had, what was the dogfighting sort of flight sim Star Wars game. I forget what it's called.
It was that good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, basically what I'm saying is
oh my goodness, what was it called? Go on. Sorry,
I've got the words Rogue Squadron in my head for some fucking reason, which I'm like 25 years late on that. I know. But basically what I'm saying is that even with the Star Wars games that have been coming out and the Star Wars games that haven't been disastrous over the last handful of years, there's nothing that's really kind of Squadrons. Thank you. There's nothing that's really being that be all and end all Star Wars game that some people have probably had in the back of their heads and in their minds and imaginations for most of their lives because of how long Star Wars as a franchise has been with us. And those worlds are big enough. And there are enough characters, and there are enough planets, and there are enough settings, and there are enough blah, 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 to explore loads of Star Wars territory. And it's exactly like you said, the idea of an Amy Hennig written Star Wars Uncharted-inspired action-adventure game, it sounds great. But when you have 7 games all in development at once, you begin to wonder to what extent will those 7, which could be releasing over the space of, the next 5 or so years, like, start to step on each other's toes. And, like, how much room is there? And, like, does Jedi Fallen Order 2 begin to look less special or less important or less relevant if, this particular Star Wars project materializes in the next 5-6 years and is good? And then, what room is there? Like, then you have Respawn, you presume at least one of their projects will be an FPS game, and then where does the Quantic Dream thing fit into there when, like, the rumours there are that that's also going to have a more combat-oriented, almost third-person shooter element to it. And then you've got the Ubisoft Massive one, and, like, up till now, Massive have only made the Division games. So, like, is that going to be, like, a Star Wars looter shooter? Or is that going to be something different? And, like, and again, like, you think about Star Wars open world games, we haven't had one yet. You know, Jedi Fallen Order was sort of hub based, and that was the closest thing we had to exploration in the Star Wars game outside of Lego Star Wars, ironically. But then, what if like 5 of these 7 games are all open world Star Wars games? Then we have open world fatigue as it is, let alone Star Wars open world fatigue. So I hope that Lucas are being careful with the deals they're signing, the developers they're working with, and the projects they're signing off on to allow for these things to differentiate themselves from one another and be unique, valuable experiences to add to the wealth of experiences that Star Wars can bring to gaming, but haven't been able to for the last decade.
Yes, it's getting to the point. It sort of makes me feel a little bit like the fatigue we have around Ubisoft and attaching Rainbow Six to everything. In that you end up with games that have just got a name and they sort of exist in a universe, but actually they seem so disparate and they can be so different in that we're just going to end up getting to a point where it's called Star Wars, but actually, yeah, they're just trying to cover so many different bases, or maybe even, like you said, not enough. But then there is still that hope that, you know, they will come out a game which is a Star Wars game in the Star Wars universe with the characters that doesn't necessarily have to be like all of the characters, but the characters we want to see and play as. And it just feels so damn good. I think that's why we kind of give it a pass every time there's a new Star Wars game announced. It's like, yes! And then you kind of go, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
But even there, you mentioned characters. Like, I would guess that the majority of these 7 games we're talking about will not focus, at least primarily, on known characters from the existing films.
I would say...
They like cameos, sure, but I'd be surprised if more than 2 of these had playable versions of known characters from the films.
Oh, let's say surrogates then for known characters. So, for example, you don't necessarily have to have you don't have to have Obi-Wan Kenobi and
you have a
Darth
Jedi.
Maul. You have a Jedi and a Sith. I think.
Well, like what Jedi Fallen Order had was like, this is the good Jedi and his lightsaber, and these are the bad, not quite Siths and their fancy lightsabers.
Exactly. You don't necessarily need like the name characters, but then you have the strange thing with Star Wars is that you can actually have a Star Wars game that has nothing to do with any type of... It's just an alien who you're like, oh, you're in Star Wars, though. And you could have a game set around, you know... You could have like a Mass Effect style game where you're on a ship and you're traveling around to different planets. You don't go anywhere near any planet you've been to in the Star Wars universe so far.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just... They just say, oh, it's Star Wars. Like, that to me is one of the weird things about... Yeah. Such a big universe.
Then you just name drop like someone randomly, like, oh yeah, we had another guy just like you pass through this system 6 months ago.
Right.
Said his name was Han, and all the fans go, oh my god, wow.
You could almost just date it based upon who you mention. Like if they say, oh yeah, because Darth Sidious was knocking around a few years ago, and then you can be like, oh, I know where I exist in the universe now.
Or you just do like, is it been enough time to spoil Jedi Fallen Order?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I'll do spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order. It's been 3 years, coming up on 3 years.
I think 3 years.
Spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order over the next 30 seconds if you want to skip ahead. But you could also just do what that game did, which was there's no tact or subtlety whatsoever. It's just like, hey, we know the kind of the antagonists of this game haven't been great so far. Here's Darth Vader. He's just in this game now. He's the bad guy.
Yeah. Which if you want to do that. Why not? You've got so many bad people to pick from now in the Star Wars universe. You could finagle one of them into it.
Exactly.
It's gonna be doable if you need to have them sort of shoehorned into the back end of your game. But it does be one of the things that gets me down about that is when you say there are 7 Star Wars games being made by multiple different developers across genres. One thing I always worry about is what IP or new IP are we then missing out on? Because all these companies who are taking years and years and years of teams on these games, they're people that aren't working on other titles because they're too busy working. So Amy Hennig's also working on a Marvel game, fantastic. But then so now you've got Skydance New Media is now working on 2 known properties. when that sounds like a great time for her company to be working on completely new IP, making games that we would all love. Like, you know, when Uncharted series originally came out, when The Last of Us originally came out, we saw some fantastic new IP, and when just not getting it because everyone's working on something we've heard of before.
Yeah, it is a bit of a bummer, especially because, again, like just over 2 years into a new however long we are into this generation, I'm losing track of time now. But like, this is the point when I remember what it was like, especially in the Xbox 360 life cycle. You know, when you're entering into the second or third year, this is where the new ideas and the new intellectual properties that have been conceived to take advantage of the new hardware and the new generation, and to be introduced to a wave of new fans. That's when they should start to arrive. And there is an element now where, again, we always talk about the idea of like publishers and the people who call shots in the games industry, like managing risk. It's all about, you know, calculated risks, and you've got to create as many different hooks as you can for ways to make sure you're not losing out or you're not losing money. And there, you know, especially as we're moving away, not fully, but we are trying to at least decrease the emphasis we put on paid additional components to video games. We're trying to de-emphasize the presence of microtransactions in games. We're trying to put emphasis on other things, you know, creating ecosystems and keeping people playing games for longer, and then trying to, you know, extract money from them in other ways later down the line. I think one of the ways, I think we inevitably this generation will see less risk taken when it comes to properties and franchises that things are attached to. We're going to see more remakes, because those are the ways that the publishers and the people who call the shots, like I said, are taking back the risks that they would have once had to offset using things that weren't popular. So it's like, okay, like, fuck it, like, what will we do? What did I remember? Was it last week or the week before? Maybe the week before. Because I think you were there. I'm pretty sure you were. But like, I kind of like was the contrarian in the conversation about Max Payne 1 and 2, where like on the one hand, yes, they're remaking Max Payne 1 and 2. Let's all get excited. On the other hand, though, the exact same comment you just made about Skydance New Media now applies to Remedy. Yes. And like Remedy, through games like Control and Alan Wake, were like making legitimately cool shit. And now, look, they could be a big team, they could be a multi-team studio, and so on and so forth. I'm not denying any of that's possible. But point blank, there will either be less time or less people or less resources committed to other original projects as a result of this, because it's less of a risk, or it's a more calculated risk, and they don't, you know, because of the brand appeal and the brand recognition, so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to like be negative and say that's what we as gamers are creating for ourselves, but to a certain extent, it's true.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is true. And also, when you look at like Star Wars, Lego Skywalker, Saga, blah, 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 it did 3.2 million units in its first 2 weeks. So when they stick to known quantities and they make Star Wars games, they sell units and make money. So,
yeah.
And with
what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
And with that damning indictment of ourselves.
I didn't mean it to sound so depressing.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't at all. I think we've reached the end of our podcast. So all that's left to say is, Jamie, thank you so much for joining me this week. Chris will be back next week. He's basically working this week, so he couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Work trip, I believe. He's
indeed
in a different part of the land.
He is. So yes, but you can reach out to us at YouTube and Twitter at SuperShow Pod. You can listen to us on all your favourite podcasting platforms: Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. We're on Paisley Radio Thursdays at 10 p.m. and repeated on Mondays. Head over to patreon.com/SuperShow if you would like to join our Patreon. And I think the only thing left to say is that why don't you leave us a little comment to let us know that you reached this point in the video. We've already said it at the beginning, earlier on, near the beginning of this podcast. I want you to let us know: are you team knife or are you team bat?
Oh yeah.
For that little hypothetical that Jamie posed earlier on. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.